Rain hammered the roof like 1,000 tiny fists, each drop colder than the last. The December wind howled through the cracks of the small, run-down rental house at the edge of town, shaking the thin windows as if trying to get inside. Ethan Parker, a tired single father in his early 30s, stood near the kitchen counter staring at the stack of bills that kept growing while his income kept shrinking. His 6-year-old son, Noah, slept on the couch wrapped in a blanket with cartoon dinosaurs. The heater barely worked, the house was always cold, but Ethan did his best, he always did. He rubbed his temples and sighed. The electric bill was past due, again. His second job had cut his hours, again. Life felt like a hole he was constantly climbing out of, only for the ground to crumble beneath him. Then 3 sharp knocks. Ethan stiffened. It was almost midnight. Nobody visited him. Nobody even knew he existed on this side of town. He opened the door slightly. 2 little girls stood on his porch. Twin girls, no older than 7. Identical faces, identical long brown hair drenched with rain, identical trembling bodies hugging each other for warmth. Their dresses were thin, soaked, and their shoes muddy. Ethan blinked. What are you doing out here?" The twin on the left whispered, "We're lost." The other added, "We need somewhere safe just for tonight." Ethan glanced into the darkness behind them. No cars, no adults, no sign someone had dropped them off. Just 2 freezing children standing alone in a storm. "Where are your parents?" he asked. They looked at each other, hesitating, fear flickering in their eyes. "They aren't here right now," said the first girl. "Please," whispered the second, "we don't want to go back to the shelter." Ethan's heart twisted. He didn't have money, he didn't even have space, but he had a son, and he knew what fear in a child's eyes looked like. He opened the door wider. "Come in." The twins stepped inside, dripping water onto the carpet. Ethan rushed to find towels, blankets, anything. When he returned, the girls were standing exactly where he left them, polite, quiet, almost strangely calm for children in such a situation. He wrapped them in blankets. "What are your names?" he asked. The girls exchanged another look, then answered softly. "I'm Lily." "And I'm Rose." "Lily and Rose," he repeated gently. "Okay, you can stay here tonight. Tomorrow morning we'll sort things out." Both girls nodded gratefully. Ethan prepared some warm soup, found 2 spare shirts of Noah, and eventually settled the twins in Noah's small bedroom while Noah slept peacefully on the couch. Lily and Rose whispered their thanks before drifting off, exhausted. Ethan sat silently at the kitchen table afterward, staring at the storm outside. He had no idea who they were. No idea who was looking for them. No idea what he had just stepped into. But one thing was certain. He couldn't leave 2 frightened girls out in the storm, even if it complicated his life, even if it cost him. It was what decent people did. Around 3 a.m., Ethan finally fell asleep in the living room chair. At sunrise, a loud pounding shook his front door, the kind of pounding that made your stomach drop. Ethan jolted awake. Lily and Rose were huddled on the hallway carpet, holding each other, pale and shaking. "It's him," Lily whispered. "It's our father," Rose added, eyes wide with fear. Ethan rushed to the window. A sleek black SUV was parked outside, shiny, expensive, the kind that didn't belong anywhere near a neighborhood like this. A tall man in a suit stood on the porch, flanked by 2 large security guards. The man himself looked powerful, intimidating, filled with barely controlled panic. Ethan swallowed. "Is he dangerous?" The twins exchanged a strange look. "No," Lily whispered. "He's just difficult," Rose said. "He'll be angry," Lily added, voice quivering, "but not dangerous." Ethan inhaled deeply and opened the door. The man on the porch stormed toward him instantly. "Are you Ethan Parker?" His voice was sharp, commanding. "Yes," Ethan answered cautiously. The man exhaled shakily. "Where are they?" Ethan stepped aside slightly. "Inside, safe." And before the man could say another word, "Daddy!" the twins darted forward and threw themselves into the man's arms. His tough exterior crumbled instantly. He dropped to his knees, pulling them tight against his chest, his face contorting with relief. Tears, real, raw tears, slipped down his cheeks. "Oh, thank God," he whispered. "You're safe, you're both safe." Ethan blinked. This wasn't the reaction of a cruel man. It was the reaction of a father who had nearly lost everything. After several moments, the man gently stood, keeping an arm around each girl. He turned to Ethan. "My name is Alexander Hartwell." He hesitated. "I know you don't recognize me, but most people do." Ethan frowned. The name was familiar. Alexander Hartwell. The Hartwell. Real estate mogul, billionaire, owner of half the commercial development in the state. He was everywhere, in magazines, interviews, business headlines. And he was standing on Ethan's porch. "I'm sorry if they scared you," Alexander said breathlessly. "My daughters ran away from our hotel suite last night. We've been searching for hours." "They said they didn't want to go back to the shelter," Ethan said carefully. Alexander froze. Then he closed his eyes, face heavy with guilt. "That's my fault," he said softly. "Their mother passed away last year. I've been burying myself in work because it hurts less than grieving properly. We've been traveling constantly, meeting to meeting, city to city." He looked down at his daughters who clung to his hands. "I haven't been giving them a home, or stability, or the attention they deserve." The twins looked down sadly. Ethan understood. Pain was pain, no matter how rich you were. Alexander cleared his throat. "I need to thank you, Mr. Parker. Anyone else might have called the police or kicked them out. You took them in despite." He glanced around the small, broken-down house, his voice softening. "Despite how hard things already are for you." Ethan shrugged awkwardly. "They were scared. I couldn't leave them outside." Alexander studied him for a long moment, really studied him. Then he reached inside his coat and pulled out his wallet. Before he could remove anything, Ethan raised a hand. "Please don't." Alexander froze. "I haven't even." "I don't want money," Ethan said calmly. "I didn't do it for that." The billionaire looked stunned. Nobody refused him. Not ever. Not until this morning. Lily tugged on her father's sleeve. "Dad, he made us soup." Rose added softly, "And he gave us his son's bed." Alexander looked around again, really seeing the chipped paint, the old siding, the broken heater, the sagging roof. He closed his wallet slowly. Then he looked Ethan straight in the eyes. "No one," he said quietly, "has shown my daughters this kind of kindness since my wife died." Ethan didn't know what to say to that. Alexander took a deep breath. "At least allow me to offer you breakfast, a proper one. My daughters want you there." "We do," Lily confirmed. "Please," Rose echoed. Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "Let me get my son." The hotel restaurant was the kind of place Ethan had only seen on TV, marble floors, warm lighting, fresh pastries with names he couldn't pronounce. Noah's jaw dropped the moment they walked in. Alexander pulled out chairs for all 4 children, speaking softly to his daughters, checking their hands, their hair, their faces like a man terrified of losing them again. Ethan watched silently. He saw a man trying to be strong, trying to do better, trying to change. Halfway through breakfast, Lily whispered something to her father. He looked surprised. She whispered again. Alexander nodded, though he seemed unsure. Then he turned to Ethan. "My daughters would like to spend more time with you." He paused, almost embarrassed. "They trust you." Ethan blinked. "They only met me last night." "I know," Alexander said, "but children see what adults overlook." The billionaire swallowed, then added quietly, "Would you consider helping me with them? As a caretaker, someone who can be in their life consistently." Ethan stared at him. "Mr. Hartwell, I don't have qualifications. I'm just a mechanic, and I can barely manage myself some days." Alexander shook his head. "That's exactly why I'm asking, because you cared when you didn't have to, because you have heart. My daughters don't need a professional." His voice softened. "They need kindness." Ethan opened his mouth to decline. He didn't want to get tangled in a rich man's world. But then Lily slid her small hand into his. "Please," she whispered. Rose grabbed the other hand. "We like your house," she said shyly. "We like Noah," Lily added. "We like you," Rose finished. Ethan felt something inside him melt. Alexander leaned forward. "The job comes with housing, a real house, a vehicle, medical care for your son, and a salary far more than any mechanic shop can offer." After a pause, he added softly, "But none of that is the point. My daughters feel safe with you. That means everything." Ethan looked at Noah, who was happily sharing pancakes with the twins, laughing for the first time in weeks. He looked at Lily and Rose, who clung to him with innocent trust. Finally, he looked at Alexander, the billionaire father who was trying, failing, and trying again. Ethan took a slow breath. "Okay," he said quietly, "I'll help." Lily squealed. Rose hugged him. Noah grinned so wide it looked like his face might split. Alexander exhaled shakily, almost emotional. "Thank you, Ethan. You may have saved more than just my daughters last night." Ethan smiled faintly. "Maybe we all saved each other." And for the first time in a long time, the poor single father felt something he had nearly forgotten. A future blooming out of nowhere. A door opening he never imagined. A life changing with a single, stormy knock at midnight. Because sometimes, the smallest act of kindness doesn't just save 2 lost children. Sometimes, it changes 4 lives forever.